Okay, good evening. Thank you for all coming to our district budget meeting. The first order of business is to please stand and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First article of business is to elect a moderator.
I move that Greg M. is elected as moderator. I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations from the floor? If there are no other nominations, I declare the nominations for moderator are closed. All those in favor of Greg M. for moderator, please raise their hands. Thank you. Mr. M? Any oppositions to Mr. M being? Thank you. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Maine, so long as you shall continue to be a citizen thereof, and faithfully discharge to the best of your abilities the duties incumbent on you as a moderator of the MS86 budget meeting on June 1st, 2019, May 30th, 2019, according to the Constitution and the laws of the state of Maine? I do. Yeah, excited.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Penna, and thank you everyone for showing up and participating in this budget meeting. My first order of business is to swear in the ballot clerks. So if I could get your attention and have you stand. And do you swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Maine, so long as you shall continue to be a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully discharge to the best of your abilities the duties incumbent on you as ballot clerk of the Maine School Administrative District Number 6 budget meeting on May 30, 2019, according to the Constitution and the laws of the state of Maine? Okay, and I'll have you sign your names on this oath. Okay, so while the ballot clerks are signing their oaths, I'll take care of a little housekeeping. Tina Plummer is going to be the recording secretary for the meeting. By law, a person who's not registered to vote in the district is not allowed to speak at the meeting without consent of 2/3 of the voters. So, but there are some people here who are not voters, like the business manager, Bill Brockman, and some administrators who may be asked to answer questions to the budget or provide information for the budget. So I'm going to ask for the general consent of the meeting to allow these people to speak, to provide information for the budget. If those people wanted to debate or speak in favor of any of the articles, I think that would require a separate consent that we take up separately at that time. So general consent to allow administrators to provide information for the budget. Is there any objection to allowing that? Okay, seeing none, we'll allow that. For the rules of procedure, I'll generally follow the main moderator's manual, which is generally accepted for town meetings and school budget meetings like this. except as there are some exceptions for budget meetings that I'll follow. And I'll just kind of give a brief overview of how the meeting's going to proceed. First, the superintendent will give an overview of the budget, and then when he's done, I'll go through the warrant articles in order. I'll read one at a time. I'll read the warrant article. I'll ask for a motion and a second, and then I'll open the floor for discussion. If you want to discuss the motion, I'd ask you to come to the microphone in the center. It helps that you can be heard, and it also allows them to capture your audio for the recording that they're doing. When I recognize you, state your name and the town you're from. It helps sometimes to state what you're going to say, like I'm speaking in favor of the motion or against the motion. Please limit your comments to that's relevant to the motion that's on the floor. I'll reserve going over rules about limiting discussion until we need to, maybe. But I'll let you know that if we are getting into a protracted discussion and you feel like we've talked too much about it and we should vote on it, you can make a motion to end discussion and vote. And you can call the question, call the previous question, or just say, I'm tired of talking about this, let's vote. And that motion requires a second and a 2/3 vote of the people that are present. So just keep that in mind. If we have amendments to a motion, I'll entertain the amendment first. To avoid confusion, I won't do amendments to amendments, I'll do amendments one at a time. Once we vote on an article, I will be by show of hands. Everyone should have checked in with the clerk to get a colored card, and I think you might have gotten your ballots already for one of the articles that requires a written ballot. We'll do most votes by show of hands, and I'll declare it, and once that's settled, we'll move on to the next article until we're through the entire warrant. So with that, I will turn this over to the superintendent to give a presentation on the budget.
Thank you. I think some of you have heard parts of this presentation, but the benefit of people who haven't been able to hear it, I want to make sure we go through that. And for people that are viewing at home, I want to make sure they understand the budget that we put together, which was very fiscally responsible. I'm really proud of the budget that we're presenting to the communities tonight and the work that we've done. A big thanks goes out to making this happen, starting with my administrators. We begin our work in the fall as a team, and actually in the summer when we set our goals, and then we begin working toward what are the things we're going to need to move our schools forward in that next step. So a lot of work goes in with that team, and I'm really appreciative of the work they do. We work very well together, and that's a really important part of sustaining really positive growth in our district for our students. So then that work moves into the district, the BAC. And many of you have been to those meetings or know about that. If you haven't been part of the BAC, it's something to think about for next year to get involved. It starts around November. It's a great stakeholder group that gets to understand and understand budgeting and how the state budgeting goes, how the funding goes. So it's a really good way to understand school budgets, and a really good way to understand how your tax dollars are going to be allocated and spent. So if you haven't been part of that, think about that. That commitment is a wonderful experience and opportunity. And then when we get through with that, we bring that to Finance and Facilities Committee, and we move that through the process, and then we bring that to the school board. As you know, many of you know, we started out this school year with an incredibly high, with what we anticipated for state funding. We were anticipating an increase that was unacceptable. We were not going to bring that forward. It was over 11%, and we knew that that was not going to be acceptable by our communities, and nor were we were ready to present anything like that. So we went to work really hard on saying, what are our options in order to make things happen? And there were some extreme options. We had to think, and we had to look at a lot of big things, because you're not going to take that amount of money that we were short out by nickel and diamond, a little bit from each school. So we looked at some big things, we brought the community together, we talked about some things as we looked at it. Fortunately, as the process went on, a number of things happened, but one of the positive things happened is we received $1.4 million from the state, and that was a real positive thing for us in looking at now where we're going to go for our budget. Meantime, some of the things we talked about, like the Steep Falls School, we ran into other barriers of things that we needed that we're not going to be able to manage in the 1 year period of time, such as making some renovations to Edna Libby to accommodate the 100 additional students and the EPA environmental issues permits that we were going to need to get within a timely fashion to make those transitions. So we were working on those things simultaneously, saying because you can't go to your community and talk about a school closing after all those things are in line because it's so far down the line. It's like the Monday night quarter at the end of the game, bringing that forward. So we started that conversation early, and it wasn't to create any panic or alarm. It was we had a high increase, and we had to work on that, and we had to work on the other issue as well, how are we going to get these schools ready for 100 additional students? And so a lot of that work went in. I just want the communities to understand that that was, a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment, and I know there's a lot of passion for the schools in keeping it that way, but it was really based on the dollars. Once the dollars got straightened out and we knew we were going to have challenges with the Edna Libby transition, then we were able to say we can make this work by other things, which I'm going to talk a little bit about on how we accommodated the budget. The biggest thing I think that went on for us when we looked at how are we going to look at budgeting, we began looking at a book that's been around for a while, Nathan Levinson, called about Smarter Budgets, Smarter Schools. And it's not a new publication, it's an older publication that really helped us to rethink budgeting and look at budgeting more from a district perspective than school by school. So we had to really rethink how we allocate our resources to ensure that we have the growth that we want to have and provide our students the opportunities that they deserve. So ultimately, when we came down to the budget, we were talking about, a 0.5% increase over last year's budget, or a $248,650 increase. And we felt pretty good about the work that we had done because as I go through this and talk to you, this is not regressing in our district. We are presenting a budget that I can stand here and attest to you that we are moving this district forward in a very positive direction, even with those, because of how we're thinking about budgeting and how we're allocating our resources. So as we went through that process, we are, and I'm going to talk about the cuts as we go through this, but I want you to know that we had started a pre-K program, as you know, several years back, and it slowed down for a while, and we weren't bringing pre-K in. And we added pre-K to Hollis Elementary last year, and next year we'll be adding it to Buxton Center. So all of our elementary schools will have a pre-K program. I think that's fairly phenomenal for those bringing those 4-year-old students in. In that, we also are adding a dean at our middle school, and that was due to some reconfiguration of our administrative lineup and saying that we're going to have administrators sharing schools. Again, using those resources, looking at the Buxton Center as our model, as a larger school with a principal, assistant principal, looking at our smaller schools and saying, how can we reallocate our resources in administration to efficiently and effectively move those schools forward. And the team was outstanding to work with because they also felt that they could that they had more capacity to expand their abilities and to get into the school. So we began looking at Buxton Center as that model of how we allocate those resources, and that worked out really well. One of the things we looked at is making sure that we have consistent supervision. So you currently have, you don't have a principal in every building. So when we looked at our model, we looked at how are we going to also provide supervision in every building every day. And we were able to accomplish that with sharing some resources from the middle school, looking at the assistant principals, looking at enrollment, looking at where people can be in order to allocate. So we feel very confident on what we're going to be doing in ensuring that we have better support than we currently do in our schools with administration. We are looking at our alternative ed. Some of you may or may not know, last year we added an alternative pathway, a different way of learning for students at Hollis to experiment with it. It's been extremely successful. We're going to expand that program this year. We're also expanding that into Buxton Center. Again, using current resources, and we're using our alternative ed director to oversee all of our alternative pathway learning models so that we don't have, it's not going to be building base in the sense that you have alternative learning at the high school, you have some model going out the middle school, you have some model going out the elementary school. We want systemic alignment. So to do that, we're going to use Alternative Education Director to oversee all of those programs, to make sure we have consistency, primarily for, the programming is obviously different for age groups, but primarily you want those students to move seamlessly. If they're in an alternative pathway and doing different things at Hollis or at Buxton Center, they need to transition from grade level to grade level seamlessly, to the middle school seamlessly, to the high school seamlessly. And that's done by having a person that's overseeing that. These are not additional resources in our district. This is reallocation of the current resources we have and just thinking differently about how they can provide the services to our students. So we're quite proud of that work that we're doing. The other thing you'll see within the budget is a .5 English teacher. It says alternative pathways. One of the things we've talked about from back before, probably when I had a full head of hair, that I've heard this conversation going on forever, is that we need to find ways for our students in our vocational centers, our CTE centers, that are doing English, science, math, and content level courses in those programs. Then they come back to the traditional high school model where they still have to go through the same courses. That's not going to be an easy fix. Everyone's talked about pathways. It's in the law for graduation that we're supposed to create pathways, but no one defines what pathways look like. MS 86 will be defining that next year for a large geographic area. We will be the only school, because we're hiring a .5 English teacher, we'll be the only school in the Westbrook, if all the schools that send to Westbrook Regional Center, we'll be the only school building a pathway for our students. We've identified 6 programs that we're going to be looking at, and we're going to be looking at the English standards that they're meeting at the vocational center, and how do we then duplicate those so they don't have to come back to the high school and then take the same English course with different English standards. So we have to look at making that work, and that's going to be hard work. We're the first ones cutting that pathway, and we think it's going to be pretty successful. But that's where you're going to see that half English teacher building pathways. We're building opportunities for our students to be successful. That's what our job is, and we need to do that in a fiscally responsible manner, and we're doing that, we think, in a very effective manner for our students and for our taxpayers. And so we're really proud of that work that we're doing. So it goes with a lot of careful planning. So in the budget reduction, so how did we get to where we are? We have an on average 3.5% increase that you'll see, and the initial budget reduction is 20 full-time equivalency positions that we're losing, that we're not rehiring through administration, teaching, and support staff, and most of that was done through attrition. And that's how the reallocation of resources have helped us. And so that reflects, as you can see, as you have this booklet as well. I don't have to recite all of the numbers in there for you, but I think it's important to see. And so where did that come from? When you look at your budget reduction page on page 10, you can see that each of the schools gave what we needed to give. Because what we did is we looked at our elementary schools and we said, we know that in Nate Levinson's book, we talk about the sweet spot of instruction. And we know that, so we looked at that as 19. That's what they looked at, that's what the research says. And a lot of the classes in some of our schools already had that number. They were running 19, 20, 21. Some schools were not running with that number. And so we needed to build some equity in that. And so we feel that sweet spot for our students being successful and our teachers having the ability to move them forward, if we looked at 19 as a number. And that allowed us to make some reductions, as you see, at the elementary school levels. And so all those are listed in the work that we've done, and again, most of that was done through attrition. When you look at the history of the per pupil expenditures, I think it's important to just take a look and point that out. I think we do really well with where we sit on the list. You can see we're $13,288.30 per student, and that falls below state average. We're actually sixth school down below the state average, which is $13,863.39. I think we do extremely well with that money. So I think that's important to measure, that is a number, and I don't think that we're not coming to our taxpayers and saying we need to be up beyond state average, we need to be here and there. We're doing a lot with what we have currently. And I think as you all have children in school, have relatives or grandchildren in schools, you have an understanding of the work that we're doing. Obviously, more money, if the state was funding education as it should be funding education, that would then release the burden on our taxpayers, but we know that's not the case. So we have to work with a balance. So I think that as you look at this, when you look at where we are and where we fall, I hope that the taxpayers find that we worked extremely hard on managing the programs that we did, and you can see the budget reductions that we had in there with the things that actually helped us get to the point where you talk about per pupil allocations. We felt we could take a little bit without hurting our students. And you see all the way through what we've done. The Chinese language program, which comes up annually as a conversation when people are looking for saving money, we've held fast. We think that's a good program for our students. It gives them opportunities that other students don't have in other communities. It makes us unique. But what we did look at is how successful that program was. That's another new norm that we're looking at, evaluating our programs as we move forward. We can't keep doing the same old things and adding money to those same old things without some data to suggest that those things are successful or need to be revisited. So we did revisit, and we did evaluate the Chinese program, and we found that part of that program, half of that program, wasn't doing exactly what we hoped for the outcome. So we're not cutting that because we had a change of heart. We're cutting it because, again, we evaluated and said, we don't think that that's doing what we wanted to do for our students. 1 day a week for some students in Chinese, which is a very complex, difficult language, was not moving them closer to be able to speak that language or understand that language. What we are doing is that we have an immersion program at Buxton Center, which is going extremely well. Those students will be in 5th grade next year. We're going to start an immersion program at the middle school so that, again, our students who want to continue to transition smoothly, they'll have a place to go. And we know that the immersion program, when they're doing content learning in the Chinese language, that they have the ability to retain and recall that information much better. So we're seeing great success with that program at Buxton Center, so that's the model we're moving with, and we can do that for less money because we're actually using a company that is out of Bangor and is in the state of Maine, as opposed to grants that we were writing for people outside the state of Maine. They have wonderful programs on both ends. We just feel that this is a good fit for us. So as you look at this, and you look at the book, and you look at the cuts, and you look at the things we've done, everything was done meaningfully. And we really looked at the impact on making sure that it wasn't going to negatively impact our students, but move in a positive direction with our students. The one cut that did come up that some of you may have heard about, they came to BAC and talked about that. You see in this list is a guidance counselor cut that was in there. And people say, at a time like this, how can you possibly cut a guidance counselor? We totally understand and hear that. I want to direct your attention to page 14 and look under Article 5 that says where we are in comparison to the state average on where we spend our dollars. And so that tells us we're in a good place. Do we want to cut that guidance counselor? No. But we needed to fit where we could fit, and we could do that through attrition at the time. But the other part that I think the community needs to know is that I've been working with the guidance staff for the entire year, building a comprehensive guidance plan. What do we do K-12 for all of our students? It's got to be done with fidelity. Every student has to have access to that. We did not have an updated plan in order to document where we are and where do we want to bring our students with a curriculum in the guidance and support services. So we now have that, and we have a great document, and I'll be presenting that to our administrators to make sure that they can support what needs to happen in our schools, and then I'll be bringing that to the school board in the fall so they'll be able to see what is it we're doing for all of our students. That'll then, again, give us the documentation we need to say we need more of this and we need more of that. So when we go to the taxpayers and say something, we have some data to support what we're asking for, as opposed to adding on, which was an older way of doing business. So I think the theme I want you to walk away with is that we're doing a lot of evaluation. We take our job seriously. We work really hard, and we're really indebted to the taxpayers, and we understand the impacts. We understand how the state works. We understand what they do and what they don't do. And we understand what we're going to have to do and how we're going to pass that on or not pass that on. The taxpayers in balance, what they can afford and what you can't afford, but to give our students a world-class education that helps them to be competitive as they move from MS-86 to the next step in life. We're very conscientious of those transitions, and we're going to continue to work really hard for those students. And I would say I've been in several other districts, so it's easy for me to talk about the team that we have administratively, which is outstanding. And the work together is second to none, and that's the most important thing about continuing as students. But I'm in schools every single day, and I can attest to the work going on in the schools, and the teachers, and the hard work and commitment they have to our students. And again, it's tremendous. The work that the time that they put in with our kids is overwhelmingly the best I've seen, and I'm proud to be the superintendent of this district, working with the group that we have. everybody in this school, when I go into a school, when I look at the front office staff, and I look at the teachers, and I look at all the support staff, and there's a lot of hard work going on. And I can say that firsthand because I'm there. If I wasn't there and I was sitting in my office writing memos, you could say, well, you're just making that up because you want us to feel good. But I am in the schools every day and can attest to the fact that that's real and it's great work. And I think we ought to be thankful for the group that we have, and we're going to continue to grow and learn, and I'm really proud to have the opportunity to lead this district. So I'll answer questions if you have them after Mr. Brockman does a little of his part on the money things, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Penna. And with that, we're going to just march right into these articles. So Article 1, shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $19,911,097 for regular instruction? The Board of Directors recommends the same amount. So I'd look for a motion for Article 1.
Robert Deacon Standish, I move that we support and vote for Article 1. I move that Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $19,911,097 for regular instruction.
Second.
Thank you. And just to save breath in the future, it's okay to just move the article as written or read, and you don't have to get up to the microphone to make that motion. But thank you, I appreciate it. So Article 1 has been moved and seconded as written, as read. Is there any discussion on Article 1? Okay, seeing none, we're going to vote on Article 1 by raising our cards. So all those in favor of Article 1? Thank you. All those opposed? Okay, Article 1 passes as written. Article 2, shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $8,870,196 for special education? And the Board of Directors recommends that same amount.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. So Article 2 has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on Article 2? Okay, seeing none, we're going to vote on Article 2. All those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 2 passes as written. Article 3, shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $30,000 for career and technical education? The Board recommends that same amount.
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 3? Okay, we'll vote on Article 3. All those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 3 passes as written. Article 4, shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $807,479 for other instruction?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 4? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 4 passes as written. Article 5, shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $4,891,003 for student and staff support? The Board of Directors recommends the same amount.
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 5?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, Susan Watson. I appreciate the effort here on this budget. I sat on the school board, I've been on the advisory committee. However, why? My question is, why is there not in the budget the request for substitute pay raise? I am a retired teacher, and I would like to sub here. You're the lowest in the area, so I go elsewhere. It is a crisis. I see that teachers and ed techs are covering, and I don't think that's appropriate for our students. I think it's difficult for the principals. I think it's difficult for the secretaries, and certainly the teachers. Sometimes when they have their spare time, allied arts time, they're covering. So it's an issue, it's been an issue, it's not been addressed for 7 years. Scarborough just raised theirs to 100. Wyndham, January 1st, when minimum wage hit, they raised theirs. I don't understand why it is a topic that isn't being discussed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bill, you care to address that?
The money for substitutes is included in Article 1, regular instruction. We will be bringing a proposal to the negotiations committee to address some of the issues that you're talking about, and we will be doing that within the next 2 or 3 meetings as soon as we finish negotiations on several other contracts that we're working on right now. But we do understand the difficulties and the problems, and we do try to address them when we can. So the board will be taking that up.
Okay. Is there further discussion on Article 5? Okay. All those in favor of Article 5 as written? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 5 passes as written. Article 6. Shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $1,229,280 for system administration? The board recommends the same amount.
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 6? Okay, all those in favor of Article 6? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 6 passes as written. Article 7. Shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $2,584,868 for school administration?
I so move.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 7? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 7 passes as written. Article 8. Shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $3,336,739 for transportation and buses, and the board recommends that same amount.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 8? Yes.
Robert Dickens, Standish. This is the only article that exceeds the state average. That's because we have the largest fleet of school buses in the state, and consistently our transportation department performs extremely well with excellently maintained buses. And I want to thank the transportation department for the efficiency with which they operate. We've also made cuts in our transportation budget. So even though this is above the state average, I recommend that we support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on Article 8? Okay, all those in favor of Article 8? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 8 passes as written. Article 9. Shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $6,054,885 for facilities maintenance? The board recommends the same amount.
I so move.
Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 9? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 9 passes as written. Article 10. Shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $2,099,953 for debt service and other commitments? The board recommends that same amount. Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 10? Okay. All those in favor of Article 10? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 10 passes as written. Article 11. Shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 be authorized to expend $15,000 for all other expenditures? And the board recommends that same amount.
I so move.
Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 11? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Okay, Article 11 passes as written. The next 3 articles raise funds to support the budget. Article 12. Shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 appropriate $42,714,337.09 for the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, and shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 raise $21,111,102 and assess the amount set forth as each municipality's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act in accordance with the Maine Revised Statutes Title 28, Section 15688. And the recommended amounts are set forth in two columns. The column on the left is the appropriation per municipality totaling $42,714,337.09. The column on the right is the amount to be assessed to each municipality, and the total is $21,111,102. There's a statutory explanation that I won't read unless someone would like me to. Thank you. Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 12? Okay, all those in favor of Article 12? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 12 passes as written. Article 13, shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 raise $196,418 for the annual payments on debt service previously approved by the district voters for non-state funded school construction projects and non-state funded portions of school construction projects, in addition to the funds appropriated as the local share of the district's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12. The Board of Directors recommends a yes vote, and again, there's a statutory explanation that I won't read unless someone would like me to. Thank you. Article 13 has been moved and seconded as written. Is there discussion on Article 13? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 13 passes as written. Okay, Article 14, this is the article that requires a written ballot. Shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 raise and appropriate $5,637,810 in additional local funds, which exceeds the state's Essential Programs and Services allocation model by $5,637,810 as required to fund the budget recommended by the Board of Directors. And the board recommends those amounts. And again, there's a statutory explanation that I won't read unless someone would like me to.
Second.
Thank you. Article 14 has been moved and seconded as written. Is there any discussion on Article 14? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on Article 14, and I'll ask everyone to bring their ballots up to there. Do we do it in your each town's box, or we do one box? What's that? Whatever's easiest for you. Why don't we do one box? So let's pick, which box should we do? Okay, the gray box over by Buxton. Please deposit your ballots there, and we'll be in recess while everyone votes. if anybody has not taken the opportunity to vote, now's your last chance. Any other votes? Okay, so we'll close the polls and I'll ask the ballot clerks to count the ballots.
You are a nightmare.
Okay, we'll come back to order. The tally on the votes is 58 in favor and 5 opposed, so Article 14 passes as written. Article 15, this summarizes the budget. Article 15, shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6 authorize the Board of School Directors to expend $49,830,500 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30, 2020 from the district's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, from non-state funded school construction projects, additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 28, Section 15690, from unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts for the support of schools. The board recommends a yes vote.
I so move.
Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 15? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Okay, Article 15 passes as written. Article 16, shall Maine School Administrative District Number 6, in addition to amounts approved in the preceding articles, be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from federal or state grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, or other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated. The board recommends a yes vote. Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 16? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. Article 16 passes as written. Article 17. Shall MSAD number 6 vote to authorize the Board of Directors to transfer an amount equivalent to the unexpended balance in Article 9 at the end of this and each fiscal year thereafter to the Capital Reserve Fund established pursuant to Maine Revised Statutes Title 20A, Section 1312, and to authorize the Board of Directors upon a 2/3 majority vote to expend from the Capital Reserve Fund amounts available for capital improvements and emergency repairs to district facilities and equipment. The board recommends a yes vote. Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 17? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Okay, Article 17 passes as written. Article 18, to see if Maine School Administrative District number 6 will appropriate $1,735,000 for the school nutrition program and raise $295,000 as the local share with authorization to expend additional incidental or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and for the well-being of the school nutrition program. And there's some detail on the share by each town, and the board recommends a yes vote. Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 18? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Okay, Article 18 passes as written. Our last article is Article 19. To see if Maine School Administrative District number 6 will appropriate $300,116 for adult education and raise $171,480 as the local share with authorization to expend any additional, incidental, or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and for the well-being of the adult ed program. Thank you. Is there discussion on Article 19? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Article 19 passes as written. Okay, so that's the end of the business articles. I'll thank everyone again for coming out and remind everyone that the budget that was approved, basically Articles 1 through 15, is subject to voter approval at referendum on June 11th. So you want to go to your local polling places on June 11th to vote either way in support or not of the budget. Hang on. Tina, do you have everything you need for the minutes? Okay. So having concluded everything that we need to for this meeting, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you again for coming. Have a good night. Drive safely.